It was 3:17 a.m. when Jacob Miller sat up in bed again, heart pounding like a war drum against his ribcage. The quiet hum of his air conditioner did nothing to soothe him, nor did the dim light from the hallway spilling into his room. It had been months since he'd had a full night's rest. Ever since the layoff at his corporate job and his breakup with Lena, negative thoughts had attached themselves to his mind like stubborn vines, always creeping, always growing. Every time Jacob closed his eyes, he saw headlines from imaginary newspapers. Failure at 32. Another one bites the dust. No one will ever love you again. He would breathe in, try to remember the calming techniques from his therapist, and still end up wide awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what went wrong and why his mind wouldn't let it go. One afternoon, while sipping on lukewarm coffee in a corner booth at Mel's Diner in Denver, he ran into his old friend from college, Travis Long. Travis looked like success in a flannel shirt. Calm, well-rested, smiling from somewhere deep inside, not just for appearances. After a quick exchange of hellos and hugs, Travis slid into the seat across from him and said, "You look like a man haunted by his own brain." Jacob chuckled. "That obvious. You remember how I was in college?" Travis asked, stirring sugar into his black coffee. "Anxiety, panic attacks, no sleep. I was like you, man. I used to get so tangled in negative thoughts I'd spiral." Jacob nodded. "Yeah, you had it rough. But now look at you. What changed?" Travis leaned back, took a sip and said, "I learned how to deal with the inner storm. Took a lot of trial and error, but it started with admitting that my mind wasn't always right." That line stuck with Jacob like a seed planting itself deep. "My mind isn't always right." He kept repeating that after the meeting with Travis. It became a mantra that both scared and liberated him. He realized that he'd given too much authority to every thought that popped into his head. If his mind whispered, "You're a failure," he believed it. If it shouted, "You'll never be happy again," he let it win. That night, he opened a fresh notebook and labeled the top of the page, "Thoughts that haunt me." One by one he wrote them down. "I'm not good enough. I messed up my career. No one wants to be with someone broken. I'll never bounce back." He stared at the list and felt the familiar knot in his stomach. But then he took Travis's advice further and did something radical. He wrote a rebuttal under each thought. Not good enough. He had a degree, held down a job for nearly a decade, volunteered at local shelters. Messed up his career. Layoffs weren't personal failures. They were systemic and often beyond anyone's control. Broken. Maybe bruised but still breathing, still showing up. That had to count for something. What Jacob didn't expect was how writing these thoughts down separated him from them. It was like seeing monsters in daylight. They weren't as big as they seemed in the dark. The next day he tried something else. Every time a negative thought popped up, he'd speak out loud. Yes, literally out loud, and challenge it. Walking to the grocery store. His mind murmured, "They're judging you. Look at you, unemployed and sad." Jacob paused near a lamppost and said, "I'm doing my best. That's all I can do. Their opinion isn't my truth." A woman walking her dog looked at him, confused, but he didn't care. For the first time he felt a flicker of control. 2 weeks later, Jacob visited a local yoga studio on a whim. He wasn't into the spiritual side of things, but the instructor, a calm woman named Rebecca Hayes, guided the class through a meditation that struck a chord. She asked everyone to visualize their thoughts as leaves on a stream. Don't stop them. Don't force them away. Just let them pass. That night, lying in bed, Jacob imagined each thought, each insult his mind threw, as a leaf drifting down a gentle stream. Instead of grabbing it, examining it, fighting it, he just watched it float by. The more he practiced, the less urgent and believable those thoughts felt. He began to understand that thoughts were not commands. They were not facts. They were temporary weather patterns of the mind. In the weeks that followed, Jacob developed a routine. Each morning began with 10 minutes of journaling, capturing both the worries and the hopes. He didn't judge what came out, he just wrote. Then he'd go for a walk, even if it was just around the block. Physical movement helped quiet the mental noise. He also practiced something his therapist, Dr. Emily Carter, had once called opposite action. If his brain told him, stay in bed all day, he'd get up and shower. If it whispered, don't talk to anyone, he'd call his mom or text a friend. Every small rebellion against negative thoughts became a vote for the person he wanted to become. There were setbacks, of course. Some days the thoughts came crashing like waves. But now he had tools. He'd breathe. He'd write. He'd meditate. And most importantly, he'd remind himself that this too would pass. One rainy Saturday, Jacob attended a support group recommended by Dr. Carter. The group was for individuals struggling with anxiety and depression. He expected a room full of silence and shame. Instead, he found laughter, tears, and a surprising sense of belonging. There was Tony, a truck driver who used to cry himself to sleep in motel rooms. And Meredith, a single mom who journaled her way through years of self-doubt. Each story made him feel a little less alone. At the end of the session, the group leader, a man named Calvin Brooks, asked everyone to write a letter to their past self. Jacob's hand trembled as he began. Dear Jacob, I know you think everything's over, that you've lost too much to recover. But I promise this is just the middle of the story, not the end. In that letter he found forgiveness. Not perfection, not sudden happiness, but space. Space to grow, space to heal, space to hope. By spring, Jacob had taken up freelance writing and began contributing articles to mental health blogs. He shared his journey, not as an expert but as someone in the trenches. His most popular post was titled, "You Are Not Your Thoughts," and it resonated deeply with readers. He began to see negative thoughts not as enemies to be destroyed, but as signals, alerts that something needed attention. When a thought like "I'm going to mess this up" surfaced, he asked, what am I afraid of? What can I do about it? That shift from judgment to curiosity changed everything. One evening, sitting on a park bench as the sun dipped below the Denver skyline, Jacob saw a father teaching his daughter how to ride a bike. She fell once, twice, but each time she got up. He smiled, realizing that was him. Not in a park, not on a bike, but in life. Falling, getting up, learning to balance. And the thoughts still came, sometimes loud and angry. But now Jacob had a choice. He could listen or he could challenge them. He could believe or he could observe. The difference wasn't dramatic or instant, but it was real, like a muscle slowly building strength with each rep. Months later, he ran into Lena again, at a bookstore of all places. They talked politely like two people who'd shared a chapter but had moved on. She smiled and said, "You seem different. Lighter, maybe." Jacob smiled. "I learned not to believe everything I think." She laughed. "That's deep." They didn't exchange numbers or make plans. It was just a moment of clarity, another leaf on the stream, floating by. Jacob walked home,